Today I'm going to talk about one of the permaculture principles, and that principle is use the edges and value the marginal. And if we think about the social aspect of that, if you think about marginalized people, there's a lot to be learned there. These days we're really, more and more people are recognizing that business as usual or the norm is not always right. In fact, a lot of time it's not right. So if we look at marginalized people, for instance, if we looked at indigenous ways of knowing, or even those that are, like living on the street or have a mental disability or a physical disability, they have a different perspective. They will have a different point of view, and there is a lot that we can learn. So to open our minds and our hearts to the marginalized, we open ourselves to growth and to creating a new way of being. If we looked at the financial system and looked at how we could, change that norm, we would look to the marginalized, the margins of the financial world, and we might find things like the donut economy idea, or we might find people doing some kind of local currency, or the gift economy. These are ideas that are on the edges of the financial sector of our world. And permaculture, it really does deal with all the aspects of living here on the planet. But today, I'm going to take you to a much more magical place. Here we have the edges of a roadway. It's a roadway I walk a lot. But the other day, I found a hole in the fence, so you can see the field. So right here we have, I guess you could call it a hedgerow. It is the area that is on the margins. It's on the edges of both these two, they're not ecosystems. I wouldn't really call a road an ecosystem, but anyway, what you see here is a little wildlife trail, and we're going to follow that. I love to follow the animal trails, because they know what's best. And here's our little gap to get through. Squeezing through. Okay, so here we are. You can see that this is pretty monoculture-y, and of course the road is just a road, but in between we've got thistles that the pollinators love. We've got rose bushes with hips that are starting to ripen, and we've got some scat, some raccoon, and a little trail going in there. So what we have here is an abundance of berries. These are Saskatoons, absolutely juicy, well, they're not the juiciest berry in the world, but these ones are actually pretty plump. We've had enough rain, I guess, that they look like blueberries, but they are actually part of the apple family. So this hedgerow is full of life. There were flowers, there's bees, there's animal habitat. We've got the raccoon, there's droppings, there's footprints. We've got rabbits and deer. I found about, I don't know, 8 or 10 deer beds all along here when I walked this. Several Saskatoon patches, some beautiful trailing blackberries. We've got hardhack, which is this purple stuff here. And here's our main den here. I think this is a fairly big raccoon that lives here. There's this little doorway, and here looks like we've got a wild crab apple tree, and we've got some St. John's wort. So there's medicines growing here. There's foods growing here. There's invasive species growing here. There's broom. But you can see why we would value this beautiful hedgerow. Many, many birds are living in here. We got quail. There's wrens and sparrows, and I'm not sure what other birds. Yes, and look how beautifully trimmed the deer have trimmed that osoberry or Indian plum. And they've trimmed it nicely, and this is one of their little day beds or night beds in here. And they just keep that all trimmed up with their nibbling. Looks like it's been manicured. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you. So if you think about where the water meets the land, anywhere like on a riverside or an ocean side, that's where the life is most abundant. And so we should value these things. If you're planting on your property, use the fence line. And they say I know at least in the Celtic, traditional Celtic belief system, this is where you would find the fairies. In other words, the nature spirits. There's a crossover usually between habitats, and there's a lot of activity. So this is where you're going to find the energies of the land.